Hello and welcome to the RIA Tech Talk podcast brought to you by RIA Workspace. I'm Todd Darroca, and alongside me is Mr. David Kakish, and together we're on a mission to simplify the complex world of technologies for RIAs just like yours. Now, in this podcast, we'll be your tech guides breaking down those often confusing tech topics into plain and practical terms. So we hope you join us, and in each episode, as we dive into the latest trends, we're going to share some expert insights and also help you navigate the ever-changing world of RIA technology. So let's get started. We've got David Kakish here, obviously, and so today we're talking all about the end of virtual desktops, dun dun dun, and what's next for RIAs. So David, let's bring you in here. So what's the big problem, and why is it important for the RIA that's listening to take heed of this and take some notes down?
Hey, Todd, I really like that drum roll. That's pretty good.
I know, right? Let's see if we can add some audio in there, some audio sound effects.
We'll bring in drums next time with us. So, all right. Well, listen. This is definitely focused on the RIA. Whether you're an office manager, whether you're the partner, managing partner, chief compliance officer, chief COO, chief operations officer. This is not geared towards an IT professional, right? We're not getting into the technical weeds. If you're an RIA with, let's just say, roughly between 5 and 25 employees, this is for you. This is important for you if you're an RIA that's already using virtual desktop technology, or if you're exploring what are some of the other technologies out there provided by other IT providers. I'll dive into some of the details, but it's really an outdated technology, and we're seeing RIAs sort of flock away from that technology. But then we're also seeing some people that are exploring what are some of the other options. And there's some really great salespeople out there selling it. And then, I feel like people are falling for it. So I just want to talk about that and, what are the options? So again, whether you're using the virtual desktop technology or whether you're exploring to use that, this is going to be really beneficial for you.
Okay. So just to recap here, so hopefully by the end of the session, what you guys are going to learn from David is, why so many RIAs are flocking away from this type of technology. And if you are exploring other options, why VDI and the cloud computer should be at the bottom of your list. And actually, I wouldn't even have it on my list if I were in your shoes. So let's get started. So David, first question off the bat, obviously, what is a virtual desktops, and what's the big problem with virtual desktops for an RIA?
Sure. Yeah, the whole idea of a virtual desktop, and I want to say some people will use different terminology like VDI or virtual desktop infrastructure or HVDI, hosted virtual desktop infrastructure, or a cloud computer. Some people might call it like Citrix Workspace, and so there, a virtual computer, a cloud computer, a virtual desktop, a hosted desktop, right? Depending on who you talk to, the whole idea is you're not using your local computer's operating system. It feels like the operating system for your local computer is actually hosted at a data center someplace. And so everything is happening someplace else, and nothing is really happening local on your computer. Your computer is essentially a dumb terminal, right? So that's, that when I talk about virtual desktop or virtual desktop infrastructure, that's what I mean on that. So you log into your computer. Your computer is a dumb terminal. You're accessing another computer that's hosted at a data center someplace, and your local computer becomes irrelevant. So from a security perspective, it was kind of nice because it didn't matter about the endpoint. But what's happened, and for a while we were using this technology, but we really have not been using it for 5+ years, and we've moved people away from that. And I'm still shocked to see that people are still using that. And again, we're seeing RIAs coming to us, not wanting to use this technology. And this technology, to be fair, still makes a lot of sense, like in the healthcare industry. It makes sense in some other verticals where you have a lot of what I would call like legacy software or server-based applications. And what I mean by that is a lot of the software applications for financial advisors and registered investment advisors today is web-based. And so you really don't have a need for a local server or the virtual desktop infrastructure, but that made a lot of sense when you were replacing a local server to go to a cloud computer. But that just does not make sense for so many people, and we've migrated away from that. And again, the two things that I see consistently is people coming to us that want to, get away from it.
Mhm.
That's number one. And then number two, I see people that are sort of exploring some options. And there's some IT providers out there that are really great salespeople. Like I got to give them credit, they're very personable, they're very nice, they're doing all the right things. And I go, oh my goodness, when somebody goes with that technology, I'm like, even if you don't go with us, it's okay. Just don't go with that technology, right? And
Yeah.
so I see that quite a bit. And I just I want to help and educate advisors and RIAs.
So what is the big problem with VDI?
Yeah. So for the people that are using it, they know that. So if you're using, the virtual desktop VDI technology, be patient a little bit. Let's assume somebody doesn't know what that is, right? So a couple of things that happens. One of the really big things that happens for a lot, an employee that's using this technology, they're like, hang on, am I using the local web browser or am I using a hosted web browser, right? Am I using the
Mhm.
local browser or am I using the browser that's sort of hosted in the cloud? And it's hard for them to tell the difference between the two. A lot of the keyboard shortcuts, that you and I use all the time are
Mhm.
not available. They don't work when it's in a hosted environment. The other thing that happens is video and audio. There's a lot of latency. So, the whole economy is shifted to Zoom meetings and video meetings and things like that. No exaggeration, and I don't want to say the name of this firm, but a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to them over a Zoom meeting like this, and his audio just went out, because he was using the virtual desktop VDI technology. And so what happens is, in theory, right, it was really good for security because it's separated and this and that, but because there's all these problems, employees find workarounds, right? So like they're presenting, but they can't present Zoom in a cloud computer environment, right, or in a virtual desktop environment. So they're using the local environment, Zoom to
Mhm.
present locally, but then they email themselves the files and the documents, right? So they can
Yeah.
access that. And I'm like, well, that defeats the whole purpose. The other thing that people don't realize is you're actually doubling up on paying for cloud resources and for Microsoft licenses. So when you think about something like Microsoft Outlook or Word or Excel, right? The way that Microsoft licenses that is for your local computer, but then you can also have it hosted on a virtual desktop, but Microsoft makes you pay that again. And so anyways, kind of looking at that, like you're paying extra money, you're not getting the benefits of the security that, supposedly you were sold on. And the third thing is there's a lot of problems with latency, when it comes to video, when it comes to audio, and then people are constantly finding a workaround, and people are confused, like, am I local, am I not? So, and here's my recommendation. If you decide that you want to move forward with that, talk
Mhm.
to two clients that are using that technology and say, how's the video and how's the audio? And that's going to answer the question. So,
Yeah, so obviously, a lot of people went to VDI. They adopted that. It worked for them. So, we're talking about all the challenges right now. So why did they even go to VDI in the first place? What were the big advantages of going with VDI?
yeah. And the key word was, what was the big advantage, right? Not what is the advantage now.
Right, right.
I think if you go back in time 4 or 5 plus years, there were big advantages. Number one is, so let's kind of go back in time 5, 10 years ago, right? A lot of financial advisors and RIAs had a server in their office, and that server was running server-based applications. Think QuickBooks, think Juncture, think Black Diamond. Take the name of whatever software, and it was running locally on that server that they had in their office. And it made a lot of sense to say, you know what, let's decommission this server that's sitting in our office and let's have that server hosted in the cloud. But then to add security, let's use that virtual desktop technology. So when you had server-based applications and when you had servers in your office, it made a lot of sense, especially if you had multiple offices, and especially if you had people that were kind of needed to sort of connect in and access that. If you look at today, the vast majority of RIAs and financial advisors are using web-based applications. Some are still using server-based applications, but that's less than 20%. I'd even say it's even less than that. But if you don't have a server-based application, there's absolutely no reason for you to be using this technology anymore. And even if you are, there's a better way to do that, and you don't need to use virtual desktop infrastructure or VDI or HVDI or cloud computer. So
So
does
what do
that
you
does that?
recommend?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, that definitely answers the questions of, why, people were using VDI, or, what was the big advantages, what kind of got there that sparkly, shiny moment of, ooh, I need that.
Yeah.
So now my question is, so what do you recommend here?
Yeah, so I want to put a quick disqualifier. We could set up people on VDI if we wanted to on a virtual desktop. We just don't, because it's not that we don't know how to do it or we can't do it. We can.
Yeah.
We just made a decision that does not make sense, and we're not doing it for our clients or prospects or anything like that. So if somebody comes to us and said, "I want to move forward with this technology," we're like, "Hey, thanks, but no thanks. Go find a different partner," right? Like that.
Yeah.
That's the decision that we've made. So here's again, I want to keep it high level. I don't want to dive too much into the weeds, because I'm not talking to IT professionals. I could, right, but I don't want to do it, because I know that I'm talking to if you're listening to
Yeah.
us, you're a managing partner, you're a CCO, you're a COO, and so on. You're not quote unquote an IT professional.
Yeah.
You're dangerous enough to know what you're doing, but not so what's interesting is you could run your entire business on the Microsoft 365 platform. And what I tell people all the time, and there's a lot of people that are using the Microsoft 365 platform. I use this analogy all the time, where it's kind of like you have an airplane, but you're
Mhm.
driving that airplane, you're not flying it. And in order to fly that airplane, you want somebody who can sit in the cockpit that knows what to do with all those gadgets. So
Mm.
if you think about most advisors today, they're using, the Office suite, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, maybe they're using SharePoint. There's so many other things that you can do that. So again, at a really high level, you can run your entire RIA securely and productively. You can run it securely and productively.
It's morning, David. Are you sure you're
Right.
good here? I mean, man.
I'm serious. It's only
Yeah.
water. I've got water in
I was
here.
gonna say,
Water
what you
and
got in
coffee.
there? Uh, so
All right. So
productively, there you go.
yes. So you can run your entire RIA on Microsoft 365 in a productive and a secure way. Number one, you can use the Office suite, Word, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, right? No brainer. Number two, you can use email. Okay. You don't need to have your email hosted with a third party like Redtail or Rackspace or something like that. The other thing that you can do is you can actually use email encryption and email archiving. Again, your RIA, you don't need to pay for a third-party tool like Smarsh, Global Relay, or somebody else to archive your emails and be compliant. You can if you want to, you don't have to. Microsoft Teams and the archiving that goes along with that. You can also use SharePoint for files and folders. We recommend SharePoint over OneDrive because there's a lot more security that you can do. So you don't need to have a third-party tool like NetDocs or Citrix ShareFile or Dropbox or Box.com. And then you can use single sign-on for web-based applications, so you don't have to have a third-party tool like Okta. And then if you want to get some of the advanced tools, you could use features like data loss prevention and e-discovery for your email. So for example, data loss prevention, that's where if I send out an email with like a social security number or a bank account number, it'll automatically detect it, encrypt it, and send it out. You can also notify your chief compliance officer. Endpoint protection for your computers and your iPads and your iPhones and your Androids, right? We can basically put a security, you can put a security wrap around those endpoints, because we know that you're probably connecting when you're at the office, maybe at home, maybe at a hotel when you're traveling. So these are all things that I just mentioned that are part of your Microsoft 365 subscription. You might have to up your subscription from, like business premium to the enterprise or this or that, but you could run your entire business on that, and you can be secure. So I know I guess, Todd, I went through a list of things. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
come back to you. You might have some
Yeah.
questions, and the listener
Yeah.
might have
So
that. So
so let's stay at the high level here. I'm in the plane. I'm not in the cockpit looking down.
sure.
So
Yeah.
keep it pretty high level. So how does it all work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a beautiful thing because the way that I do that, and I tell people, I personally work very similar to an RIA. And I'll talk on a Windows computer, but it works on a MacBook exactly the same way. When I power up my Windows computer, I need to put the password for the encryption.
Hmm.
My computer needs to meet my company's IT compliance requirements. Do I have patch updates? Do I have an antivirus and so on? And so if it does, fantastic. It'll let me connect. But again, to simplify it, I put in my going back to your question, I'm getting ahead of myself. So number one, I power up my computer.
Yeah.
Number two, I type in the password for the encryption. Number three, I put in my PIN to log into the computer. Once I'm in my computer, I open up Outlook, I open up Word, I open up PowerPoint, and so on.
Hmm.
And then I can access that. All the software applications from Microsoft are installed locally on my computer. But then when I save a file or I save a document, it's saved at the Microsoft data center in my own private cloud. So the files are indexed locally, but none of that is saved locally, and it's saved at the Microsoft data center. And what this allows me to do is I could be working on my computer in the office, and then I can collaborate real time with you where both of us can be in the same Excel spreadsheet.
Hmm.
And then if I go home and I want to work on my work MacBook, I can jump on and not miss a beat at all. So nothing is saved locally on my computer. It's all saved at my own private cloud at the Microsoft data center. And I'm fully productive and it's fully integrated. And I think that's the beauty of it is it's not like all these third party, it's not a Frankenstein with all
Hmm.
these third party tools. It's all integrated. It's all in one place. And I'm able to be fully productive and use all these tools. And again, it's simple, right? Like there's simplicity, but there's a lot of advanced security that's in the background too.
So I use a Mac. So
Mhm.
is it the same for the Mac user, or is there different?
Yeah.
Um,
So for Mac users, you know how you have Office for Mac?
yeah.
You would just
Yeah.
go ahead and you would open, Outlook for Mac, Excel for Mac, you would work. You would open up Finder, and
Hmm.
that's integrated with SharePoint. So you'd open up Finder and then you'd open up the file. But again, it's saving it at the Microsoft data center, but it's indexed locally on your Mac. So to answer your question, the experience is exactly the same. You're not turning so with virtual desktop technology, the one that people are moving away from, your Mac becomes a dumb terminal because you're remoting into a Windows virtual desktop. With this solution that I'm talking about, you're using Mac and the full functionality of your Mac. Again, you open up Outlook for Mac and your work email is there. You save a file, it saves it within Finder/SharePoint, and it's saved at the Microsoft data center. It's really a beautiful, simple, integrated solution.
Got it. So as we're coming up to the end of the podcast here, can you, real succinctly tell us what the key points again are, when we talk about the end of the virtual desktops and kind of what RIAs should do?
Yeah. So again, I think what's happened is the technology and some of the stuff that I'm talking about might seem a little bit sort of confusing, but I think like a
Hmm.
simple demo and maybe we should do that. Maybe next time we should just have a demo and say, hey, here's how it
Yeah,
works, right?
that'd
And
be real
rather
helpful.
than
Yeah.
talk about it, maybe we show that, right? So
Yeah.
maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we'll have that as a follow-up, Todd. But put simply, with the old virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI, HVDI, whatever you want to call that era is gone. Done. People are moving away from that. There's a lot of challenges with it. It was good while it lasted. It's been really, in my opinion, that era should have been gone like, 5+ years ago. The way that you can work today is you can fully leverage the Microsoft 365 platform to run your entire business. And you don't need to have all these third-party tools to do other things for your files, for your archiving, for any of that right there. The big challenge that I see out there is not a lot of advisors and RIAs know about that,
Mhm.
and not a lot of IT consultants and IT professionals know about that. The IT consultants and the IT professionals that know about this, they usually work with really big businesses or the enterprise. So think about companies with 500 plus employees. The IT consultants and the IT providers that work with what I would call small and mid-sized businesses, say 0 to 30 employees, they don't understand, they don't know how to run some of this enterprise technology, because if you're not an RIA and you're 10 employees, you don't need to have all this, right? Like you're okay with not having all this, what I would call big business security or big business IT compliance. But if you're an RIA with even just 4 employees, you still need to have these things in place. So I know I can talk about this stuff forever. So it's good that I pause and sort of come back to you, Todd.
Yeah, no, it's always helpful. Again, like what am I learning today? What am I taking away? So, okay, great. Any last things that you want to make sure that somebody walks away with? Again, virtual desktops, they can always come to you to talk about it, but again, you're moving them over to an alternative to keep them, I guess, in the game or ahead of the game and modernizing, their tech. Anything else? Any final words from you?
And I've seen this, right? Like we're really good at what we do, but we're not like that classic great salesman where we're like, let's send you some donuts. And you know what I'm talking about, Todd, right? Like,
Yeah, I haven't been sent donuts in a while though, David, but I got you.
So no, and I say this because I remember we lost a deal because they're like, David, you're great. We like your technology and all that, but Todd is local to my city, and he came in with some donuts, and we're gonna move forward with that, right? I'm like, oh my goodness. So whatever, from a salesmanship perspective, the other local company did really well, which is great. And so what I would say is, number one, do they have other RIAs or financial advisors using that technology, right? Yeah. Ask about that, and that's key. Number two, if they do, talk to them about their experience using that virtual desktop infrastructure. Specifically, what's it like to make video calls and audio calls, and how does that work? Those are the two things. If you ask, I think, setting all salesmanship aside, I think you're going to get a lot of clarity around what that is, because what happens is they move forward with it and then they're stuck because they signed a 3-year contract and they can't get out of it. So they make the best of it, and, things like that. So anyways, so that's my story with the donuts. And that's why I brought that up, Todd.
Well, thank you so much, David. Hopefully next time we do our demo, we'll have demo and donuts, because that sounds like a pretty good next show. But hey, we want to thank all of you for listening to the RIA Tech Talk podcast, brought to you by, of course, RIA Workspace. For more podcasts and resources, go to www.riaworkspace.com and check out that Learning Center. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions or topics you'd like to cover. We always want you to be engaged in the conversation. So if there's a topic you want us to talk about, please just send it on over. And of course, stay tuned for more RIA Tech Insights in our next episode. So for David Kakish, I'm Todd Darroca, and thanks so much for listening. We hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.